Hello everyone, and now I'm going to introduce you the three lessons of Joe Flom. Actually, the three lessons which had been contributing to his success. And to make it more clear and apprehensive, I will present you another real stories of the another Jewish immigrants such as Regina and Louis Bergenicht, Mort and Maurice Jenclow. Well, let me start from the first lesson. The first lesson is called The Importance of Being Jewish. Up to 1930, there was a tremendous discrimination towards Jewish immigrants, and one of that immigrants was the Flom's family. Their son, the Joe Flom, after they had moved to America, he studied in the public high school and in the Harvard University. After he had graduated the university, he started to find a job at the end of the hiring session. Well, unfortunately, it was very hard because he was a son of Jewish immigrants, and he had been and he always was discriminated. He was dropped out from the prestigious law firms because he didn't fit to their requirements in their roster because of his family background and generation. But here is a trick. Due to his origin, due to his family background, he was able to open his own firm, his own law firm. And you might think that it was very hard to have such kind of competitors as the prestigious law firms. And yes, it was true. But at that time, the prestigious law firms didn't work with the businesses which were considered scandalous because of the harsh government regulation. Under scandalous occurrences, I mean litigations, matrimonial businesses, proxy fights, and other. But Joe Flom, he was just a master at the judgment, and he was able to afford himself to work with such kind of businesses as proxy fights, litigation, and other. Well, through the years, the government regulation was relaxed, and it was very normal and ordinary to work with the occurrences which were considered scandalous, and therefore it helped Joe Flom's firm and his co-founders to prosper. Well, now Joe Flom is considered as one of the prestigious attorney who has the prestigious law firm in Manhattan in New York. The next lesson is the government, the demographic lag, or we can say the demographic lag from the demographic trough. Well, I will explain you why. In the 1930s, there was not only discrimination, but there was a depression, the absence of work. And it was very, very hard to bring up the children, and therefore the people, they had stopped to bear children, and there was a huge reduction in the amount of the girls and boys. Well, it was maybe advantage because there was the absence of overcrowded classes. There was an ample staff of teachers who were willing to give the best education to the little amount of children. It was more comfortable for them. That is why at that time there was another boy of the son of Jewish immigrants, Mort Jenclow, who was born at the end of the Great Depression, but in spite of that, he had the opportunity to get the education in public high school and to get the education at the university in the period of small generation. Uh, After the great reputation had ended, there was an increasing of requirements in employees, and here more Jean-Claude, he started to develop his own business. As he had graduated the law university, he actually um, wanted to become the prestigious attorney. Well, first of all, he wanted to accumulate the some amount of capital. He sold the cable television franchises. Then he developed his own literature agency, and after that, he was able to open the law firm. And what do you think? Yes, he had become the Outliers. He had become um, the best lawyers at that time. Well, to make it more um, to make it more clear, on the other hand, mm, I'm going to talk about his father, the Maurice Jean-Claude, because his father, he was very intelligent. He had got the relevant and appropriate education too, as his son had got, but nevertheless, he hadn't become the outlier. So why? Because he was born in the not appropriate time. He was born in the time of the top of the Great Depression. Uh, he was born at the time of the First World War. So you might think there was a time of starvation, a time of the absence of work, and the time when you have to survive, not to find any job at all. So it was very hard to develop his own business actually. Um, that is why here, sort of a time bound, we could relate it with the cut-off date about hockey players January 1st, and this time bound 1930 as the opportunity to become the outlier. Um, well, the another lesson is called the garment industry and the meaningful work. Well, let me just introduce you the prehistory of those Jewish immigrants. Uh, Basically, the Jewish immigrants had moved to America from the Europe. In the Europe, they were forbidden to own their own land, and therefore they had to find the other ways to earn some money. They started to study uh, to the different professions. They started to work in the urban trade, garment trade, just to earn some money. And talking about the garment industry, there was one factory, the Schnittwagen Hongloom, which was located in Hungary. In that factory, there was one employee that was called Louis Borgenicht. Louis Borgenicht at that time was working in this factory as the assistant, and he knew all about the clothes, the variety, the kinds of clothes, and he knew all about the sewing machines and other. After that, he met his wife Regina, and they have moved to America. At that time, Regina and Louis had two daughters, and because due to that, Lewis had to increase his salary in order to provide his family with clothes, meal, and other facilities. It was very hard because, again, there were Jewish immigrants and they were discriminated. But one day, when Louis Borgenicht was walking down the street toward off to home, he noticed how little girls was playing in a ball, and he was noticed that those girls wore an aprons. Aprons were very rare, and they weren't sort of under sales. They were required, but it was very hard to get them. And this kind of idea, brainstorm, had came to the mind of Louis Borgenicht, and therefore he decided to produce the aprons. He proposed this idea. He offered this idea to his wife Regina. They had bought the sewing machine and the clothes and other gear in order to start a production of aprons. When they have done the first portion of aprons, it was sold very quickly. And you might think that Regina and Louis Borgenicht had become the outliers in garment industry. Yes, indeed, they had. In order to Louis Borgenicht, he didn't only produce the aprons. He tried to investigate the manufacturing. He tried to investigate the market research and to negotiate with Yankees, because at that time the structure was consisted as wholesalers, firm patterns, and factory patterns and firms. Well, basically, firms Louis Borgenicht worked in the firms, and therefore he was trying to get rid of the intermediaries. Here, Louis Borgenicht, thanks to his ability, thanks to his knowledge, he offered the ideas, he offered the sort of creativity to the wholesalers, and they agreed to connect, to work straightly with the firms without any intermediaries. Well, in the end, the author makes clear that the complexity, the autonomy, the relationship between effort and reward allowed Louis Borgenicht to become an outlier. Well, complexity means when you mix your imagination with your mind, imagination with your a normal sort of level of IQ. When you autonomy means when you are responsible for what you are doing, when you are responsible for your decisions and problem solvings. And effort, he had put a lot of efforts to produce the apron, to make his firm the one, to get rid of the all competitors and rivals, and he got the reward, that kind of motivation. And here you can notice that I have been trying to integrate the first lessons, opportunity to practice, and time with these three lessons. Um, Time, which is about time period uh, where when were born the Morgan Clow in 1930. Um, then practice about Louis Borgenicht, the practice which he had in a Steinwaren Hunglung fabric, clothes fabric, and the opportunity were which was used by Geoff Lom. So at the end, if you at the end, author says, if you assert yourself and if you work hard, you are able to shape the world under your desires. And it's true because it is shown in that book in the face of real stories of real people. Joe Flom, Robert Oppenheimer, um, Louis Borgenicht, Morgan Clow, and others. So thank you for your attention.